I think that's where the changes, and I think the TLDR on some of what we want to say is where Del Toro sticks to the book, he does best.
Yes.
Where he changes it is where things get a little messy.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where it's like, okay, you cast your man because this is who you wanted, but then you had to rewrite a bunch of other things. Like, even his brother
is aged up.
Right, to a full adult. He's really just a little kid or something, right? And having to do just sort of all of that, and then making the new, okay, where we get into it, the new character, and this is, I know you have some thoughts on this. So the female character is essentially just made out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
She does not exist in the novel.
Yeah, I mean, there is an Elizabeth in the novel that he's going to marry who does die on their wedding night. The whole storyline is very different. And I had a really strong reaction to this. And I think a lot of people had a very positive reaction. So I might stand alone on this reaction, actually. And I want to hear in the comments what people thought, right? And I'm gonna break it down for you what my beef is with this character. So in the book, for those of you who haven't read it, Elizabeth is a relatively minor character. I think she's like a foster child of Victor Frankenstein's family, and we're going to talk a lot about Victor Frankenstein's family and how that's different. Yeah. But just for the purposes of this character, she's like a foster, like as a young teenager, they kind of start taking, I think her parents have died, and they start taking care of her. Her and Victor become very close. In their late teenage years, it becomes romantic. It's very clear they're going to get married. Right. Everybody is all for it. They love Elizabeth, and then he goes off to college and, learns science and creates the creature, and all of the things happen, and, he basically abandons the creature. He wants nothing to do with any of this. He goes home, intends to marry Elizabeth. A lot of things happening. I'm really truncating this, but fundamentally, and it's not great in the book either, because fundamentally Elizabeth's function is to die, which I have a problem with in literature generally when you write a female character, but there's a reason for that. By the time Victor is about to get married, and I think Elizabeth dies on their wedding night because the creature actually kills her, because at this point he's stalking Victor. The creature has now become well educated and is just aware of his position and is lonely and is furious at Victor for making him and abandoning him and just making him completely alone in the world. Yeah. And he approaches Victor with this proposal that I want you to make me a wife and I want to be able to have children, right? And Victor is completely horrified by this, right? Yes. And so the creature's killing of the woman that Victor marries is fundamentally a statement of, you have rendered me alone, and I am completely isolated, and I have no one to love, and so I'm going to take away the woman that you love, right? Now we're even. Mm-hmm. It's also because the creature is Victor's first child. Like, that's how he sees himself, right? And Victor has abandoned him, is getting married, presumably they're going to have children, and he's like, no, you don't get to have this whole happy family and forget about me. Mm-hmm. That's Elizabeth's function in the book. That's where she's coming from. I appreciate the effort in the movie to expand her role into something more substantial, and I think that's a good call in general. My problem is that she functions solely as this like virtuous moral compass that exists just to be caring and maternal towards a bit of a
counterpoint to Victor.
Right.
She has a moral, as you said, compass, a little more like compassion, empathy, all that sort of stuff, all these things that Victor, at least in the way he's portrayed here, lacks.
Yeah, and those are not necessarily bad things, but it bothers me that they create a female character to basically be this maternal role. I feel like there is more that could be done with this character. There's some very trite moments, like, I think she's like reading a book and it's like, oh, she reads and he likes her because she reads, feminism, and it's very heavy. Like, she's not a fully fleshed out woman. Mm-hmm. And they try to, there's some half-baked storyline about how she's like about to marry Victor's brother, but she's kind of unhappy in that relationship and she's more attracted to Victor, and the storyline is not really borne out as to why she's so unhappy.
That bit of the story, I'm just like, this is a distraction.
Yeah.
And then it kind of doesn't go anywhere. Right, like then there's some like weirdness between them and then whatever, but I'm just like, this doesn't need to be here. It doesn't serve the story. Yeah. It confuses and muddies things.
Right.
I see it a little different than you in terms of, like, you said, oh, she reads, therefore, like, say, feminism or something like that. I thought it was like, this is what connects them, and also Del Toro sort of creating them as mirror images, like almost mirror images, right? It's like they're parallel, really, but they differ in very, very important ways, pretty much in the ways that make Victor kind of this tragic, I don't know, figure, or definitely who he becomes. What is it like that people say knowledge is knowing the creature is the monster, wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the monster, that sort of thing, what kind of makes him in a way monstrous. And those minor differences, like it's like, oh, they are both people of science and knowledge and curiosity, and want to understand the world and all that sort of stuff, but whereas he wants to kind of bend it to his will and do these sort of things, she wants to sort of appreciate it and all this sort of stuff, and wants to do right by the creatures in it, and all this sort of thing. So I think that's how I think of it, is like the counterpoint more than anything else. And that might be a different, like, just sort of where we're coming from. It's like, what you said wouldn't have been on my radar at all, right? And there were some other things as well. Though, on a related note, the fact that they had the same actress play, and I'll let you take on this. So let's dig into that.
It's funny because I've seen no criticism about this, and it completely rubs me up the wrong way. They had the same actress play Victor's mother at the beginning as Elizabeth, the love interest. And I'm just like, wow, Freud has just turned around in his grave. It's such an unnecessary thing. I don't know why they did it. It's got nothing to do with anything. I have no idea what they're trying to say by doing this. Yeah,
that's a little confusing. I'm like, okay. Like, it took away, like, he loved his mother was loving, and this goes into the way that they basically rewrote the father and the whole family dynamic, which I think, once again, took away from one of the strengths of the original story. Because, for folks who haven't seen it, there's going to be spoilers, so apologies, but we're going to have to dig into it a little bit. So in the book, basically they're a happy family.
Yeah.
Right? The father is loving, doting, all that sort of stuff. You've got this very, very young little brother and all that sort of stuff. He has a happy, healthy family. He is raised nicely. He is not traumatized by his upbringing, that sort of thing. So when he goes out and does what he does that on his own. He owns all of that, right? There's nothing he can turn to blame except his own decisions.
Yes.
By changing his father, and they choose, I always forget his name.
Yeah, Charles Dance, who is, brilliant at this kind of role.
Right, who plays sort of the head of the Lannister clan in Game of Thrones. Brilliant job. Kind of the same role in many respects. Very cold, not loving, stern, that sort of thing.
Abusive, actually.
They don't do it too much, but they hint. This is.
He hits him with the cane. Like, this is there.
Yeah, right, exactly. But they don't get too into it, which is just as well. And so it's like, oh, he does this because his mother dies, and through the childbirth, and because his father pushed him to be a great doctor, to live up to something, that sort of stuff. And so he did it for these reasons. I was like, well, now you are kind of denying him moral responsibility, or as an audience saying, oh, you don't have to hold him responsible for his actions because his father sucked, right? And because of an unhappy household, and because of this. It's not his fault he made these choices. They were made for him through his upbringing. And I was just like, well, wait a minute, you've kind of undercut the moral tale here. And so it's like, in my mind, a really big deal.
Yeah, I had an immediate reaction to those changes. It makes it a different kind of story. It's not that I don't like this theme. I actually like this theme, and I think it can be executed very well. But fundamentally, they're talking about like a generational trauma situation. Your father is abusive and cold, and you feel abandoned by him. you make the creature, which is essentially your son, and you're abusive and cold and you feel abandoned by him. You know, there's a sequence where like his father is trying to teach him science and, you know, and he can't remember, and his father is both emotionally and physically abusive towards him. And that scene is replicated with the creature when, you know, the creature is not picking up vocabulary and he starts hitting him with a stick, and it's exactly the same scene. And to me, that was very heavy-handed. It also just made this into a different kind of story than what I think this story is.
Right. It's now, to some extent, become a story about fathers and sons.
Yes.
And, like, so that is a story worth telling in general.
Yeah.
Right? And I think a lot of people will connect with a story like that due to their own experiences. But that's not what this story is. And you've kind of veered off.
Yeah.
And again, like a lot of adaptations, by making certain changes, you've taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room for what made this a compelling and enduring story to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, it's still a good film, and I think there's still plenty of morality in discussion there. And through the end, and I'd say, like, we'll call it the second act in particular, he gets back to kind of the source material and arrives more or less where he needs to.